Spoken mate, I haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed of that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I haven't dreamed of waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass for more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I held up that cape for the last time.
Return to Kent Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Anne Delargy's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken mate.
Hi, it's Andy from Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up at the beginning of 2016, and records show it started off really as a one-off podcast chatting to writers, poets and artists. Over time, it became monthly, then weekly, and occasionally nowadays it goes on that to a more regular basis. To date, I've done over 330 sessions, and I'm always looking for new poets, writers, artists, singer-songwriters, general interesting creative people to come onto the podcast. You can find this on all the usual networks over Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Podbay, and dozens of others. But it does have a central database of Spoken Label, which is all one word, .bandcamp.com. Obviously now, to help me with the running costs of this podcast, I'm always grateful for any kind of donation to assist me with it. You can either do the donation through the Bandcamp page by putting in a fee to download one of the free podcasts, or send it over to my PayPal to aen1mpo@yahoo.co.uk. My email address again is aen1mpo@yahoo.co.uk. Enjoy the podcast. Take care. Bye. Hi guys, Andy Spoken Label, back in the house on a Friday evening. Yes, the end of a long week. And what's better on Friday evening, if I'm not drinking, which I don't drink, we're doing a podcast now. We're speaking to a lady today that's from my old hunting ground actually as well. I'm not sure if she's based in Stretford or Cholton, but either way, I know she's up round that way. And people know I was born in Stretford and also brought up a lot around Cholton as well. So what a wonderful Anne Delargy is today. And obviously, first of all, then, welcome to Spoken Label. Tell people a little bit about yourself. And first of all, I know you're not originally from the Manchester area, are you? So,
or no, I am.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, people read your bio, they were saying you've been around a bit, and I wasn't sure then. So.
Yeah, I have travelled a bit. I was born in Droylsden.
Oh, yeah, all right. All right. Good, you're not far away at all. We're Denton way nowadays, so.
Right, yeah, but just up the road. Yeah. And I went to Loretto in Manchester, in Moss Side, before it was a sixth form college. And now I live in Stretford, just in the middle of Stretford. So that's me, really. That's where I come from. I'm the youngest child in a family of 7 kids. Irish Catholic background, very, very quite a religious background. And my dad was, he'd been like a building worker, a carpenter. And then he went and did teacher training and became a teacher. And it was him that got me onto poems, really. I mean, he was mad on poetry, and particularly Irish poetry. Was very keen on Yeats, was his big one. So I got good classics right from the beginning, really. Started writing poetry when I was about 6. I remember my brother buying me a sort of notebook with poetry written on the front when I was 7, so I'd already started by then.
Whoa!
I think I've got that book somewhere, actually.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant! I think it's great if you can find those old early pieces. I've got my first ones when I was 10. And I've got them in the Clay 5 hardback book. They're absolutely terrible, but they're great fun to look at.
Absolutely. And the first one I can remember is about Pinocchio. Pinocchio didn't know is how it started. I don't remember
Brilliant.
anything about it. But
Brilliant.
I don't think we did wrote poetry at school, but I used to do writing at school, and I always got like you got to write stuff for the school magazine and school newsletter and stuff. And then what? Then I I went to Oxford. I went to Somerville College, Oxford, studied English. And I did quite a bit of writing there. But to be honest with you, Andy, I'm not really mad keen on writers.
Oh yeah.
I get on better. I get on better with musicians than I get on with writers. So I used to hang about with musicians quite a lot. And
Was that the rock and roll lifestyle for you when you were younger, basically? Was
yeah,
it?
absolutely, yeah. But mostly actually folk musicians. I was very and still into Irish music, and used to hang about with folk musicians, a bit of a groupie, really. I was a singer.
Brilliant.
I was, it's the way we earned our beer money, really. Doing a few songs. And I used to sing in a few pubs here in Manchester.
Oh, brilliant.
The Juicy was the one I usually used to Friday night, actually.
Brilliant.
We always had to drink Guinness because that's what they thought Irish musicians drink.
Brilliant. Obviously, I know obviously after that early days in Manchester, I know you ended up, didn't you? You studied English at Somerville College in Oxford.
That's right, yeah.
And then you went to London after that as well, didn't you? So
I was a couple of years in Somerset, and then I went to London, yeah. And I was in London for 20 odd years. Different parts of London, but East London I spent quite a lot of time in before it became trendy. And I was sort of very involved in politics then, and I was a Labour councillor in town.
That as well.
Yeah, Town Hamlets for 8 years, so 2 terms. That was pretty exhausting, and then just I don't know, everything kind of imploded in my life. I got my marriage split up. I lost my job. I finished on the council. I lost my house, my flat, and everything just fell apart, as it tends to do every now and again. So anyway, got back into work, got a place of my own and all that kind of stuff. And then I wrote a huge amount round about that time, a huge amount of poetry, what they call confessional poetry, I think. Just about, the marriage and what was going on and stuff like that. And somehow I'd managed to retain all the stuff that I'd written like in my teens and 20s. I had not written anything very much in my 30s, and then the marriage collapsed. And I think you were talking before about being in a relationship with somebody who's a writer.
Yeah, well, she's mentioned my wife, and actually that's why, yeah. So, yeah.
So, the person that I was with was also writing a lot of poetry, and it tended to be that he did the poetry. He did the poetry writing, and I did the sending it off to magazines, basically. So I didn't get very much of my own. I didn't get very much of my own written at the time. But after the relationship split up, and it was a pretty awful time in my life, I started writing again and writing poetry again, and I just wrote kind of compulsively for ages and ages, but I never showed it to anybody. And then, but I was sort of increasingly thinking, I've got to do this stuff. I've got to write this stuff. I've got stuff to write. So I'd got quite a good job at the time. It was a good job in London, and I just thought, I've got to go and write. So I packed that up. I went to live in Crete, I'd been going on holiday to Crete for a few years, and I was completely obsessed with it and amazed by it. And I thought, if I'm ever going to get anything written, this is where I'm going to do it.
Right. Now, obviously, I don't never use the word chance. This does kind of lead into your first book, doesn't it, then, really? So, Crete. Like, obviously, the book about your Rex, my love, which people are wondering, that's about obviously your dog and stuff. So tell us about Rex then. Yeah, and look at that. And see this video today. You will see the showing that gorgeous picture of your dog as well there. So
He is a lovely dog. He was a lovely dog. So yeah, I was a lot of things happened to me in Crete, very few of which involved writing. But anyway, I didn't get an awful lot written over there. I actually went over there to write a book about Cretan music.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I did write it, but I've never done anything with it. I don't think I've even typed it up yet. But anyway, that's another story. So while I was there, one of the many, many, many amazing things that happened to me when I was there for 4 years was meeting Rex, meeting my husband, as is now, and meeting Rex. And basically, Rex was abandoned on in a rubbish bin somewhere. And my husband brought him home, and that was it. And I didn't want a dog. I'd never had a dog, wasn't interested in dogs, didn't know how I was ever going to get a dog back to England. But it was just, it was just love.
Ah, no, it obviously, they always say with dogs sometimes, don't they? Like, the dogs choose their owners, not the owners choose the dog. And I know there's a reference in your book to that, and straight away you can see with that picture of him there. He was clearly adorable.
He absolutely was, and he wasn't. It wasn't really a very. Well, I wouldn't say he wasn't an affectionate dog. He wasn't. He didn't like being messed about. He was a very independent dog, basically. So he was quite chirpy and cheerful and loving and everything, but don't mess him about too much.
Yeah, now he's an unusual. Look, reading the back of your book, he's an unusual breed as well. Because I've not heard of the Tibetan Terrier before, actually. Yeah,
I didn't even know he was that. He was a mongrel as far as I knew. But when we came back to England, I was watching Crufts. I'd never been interested in dogs particularly, but I thought I got interested in dogs through him. And we were watching Crufts, and Claire Balding's dog was on it, Archie. And he's a Tibetan Terrier. And I thought, hang on a minute, he looks just like Rex, except Rex is black. So I tracked it down, and he's absolutely a Tibetan Terrier. And so no idea how he ended up in Crete, because obviously he wasn't born in Tibet, but they're all street dogs over there. He's the only black dog I've ever seen on wandering about in Crete.
Yeah, obviously it just shows you, doesn't it? You don't know what you're going to get from place to place.
Absolutely.
So now, what I really liked about this book was, and I'm going to ask you about one or two quite specific poems in this book, so as we will do about your other book as well. I mean, it's best way to give people a flavour of the book. Is like I said, it's obviously I adored the poem, which some people are wondering, on page number 6, Before We Met, where you actually talk about, you don't know what Rex was like before you met him. And it's like, it's absolutely, I just love the strength you showed in that poem. People wondering where you got the last 2 lines, like, I swore to myself right there, my love, you're never going back. I just love the fact when that was you're showing your love and affection to each other straight away. There you are there.
Yeah, I think it took a while, because it's a big commitment having a dog, especially when you're living in a foreign country. And it cost me a fortune to bring him over. And then I had to work. I was working full time. So, and it took a while to get the visa and stuff for my husband to come over.
Yeah, but I said they won't be straight away. I know it was 6 months, is it even more? Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah.
Well, he came over. My husband came over about almost a year after I came over, but Rex came over with me because he had his dog passport with him. But it was a very, very different life that he had. He was like, it was cold for a start, so he had a lot of adjusting to do. And in fact, the book that the sort of memoir that I'm writing at the moment, which is about halfway through that, is actually Rex's memoirs. So it's Rex telling his own story. And I was thinking, I think this is a bit weird, writing a dog's memoirs. And then I thought, well, no, actually, Black Beauty, that's a horse's memoirs, so why not?
No, I agree. And it's what I think is really good about this piece is I love the poem Sea Swimming as well, where you can see the vividness of the love between the pair of you on that one straight away, where it's like you were barking at the dog, saying, "Don't go too far," and dogs do what they normally do; they don't listen to you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tremendous stuff, that one is. Yeah, but then like you've got the other side of the coin as well, where and I can't remember the poem was as well. The one about the vet. You were
Oh
trusting the
yeah,
vet. Yeah, and I can't remember that one. I've not got the title of that one down there actually. But basically, you're trusting the vet. The vet will know what to do when the time was there.
yeah,
Basically, is
yeah.
you covered a lot of angles in
It,
that book, really. And
yeah. It was very, the last couple of years of his life were very difficult. He was 16 and a half when he died.
it's a good age for a
And
dog, that, yeah, straight away, yeah.
yeah, and especially like a rescue dog. Um, but he'd got a cruciate ligament injury, he'd got arthritis,
Mm.
he'd got dementia, which was the main thing.
Oh,
And I didn't even know dogs could have dementia, but they
I
do.
heard of that very recently. It wasn't something I was particularly aware of either. So I know somebody had a cat that got it. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Well, it's called something like cognitive something or other. I can't remember.
yeah.
Cognitive decline or something like that. But I actually said to the vet, "Is it dementia?" And she said, "Yeah." And that was his main problem, really. He was obviously he was on a lot of medication
Yeah.
for the pain from his various painful things. But he didn't want to die. And people kept saying to me, "Oh, you'll know." Because I'd never had a dog before. You'll know when he's ready to go. He'll know when he's ready to go. And I thought, do you know what? He won't. He'll keep on going forever, this dog.
Oh yeah,
So the last
I've heard of animals like that before, where they just don't want to give up, basically. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And I think a lot of it was to do with, well, people who've had relationships with dogs will know what I mean. He was kind of worried about if I'd be able to cope without him, really. I think that's why he did. I wasn't ready to let him go, I think, and he knew that, and he wasn't ready to go until I was ready to let him go. So, quite a lot of the poems in this book are about that whole thing about am I gonna let you go, and what does the vet say? And I'd always said to the vet, you tell me as soon as it's the end, you've got to tell me, and I will do what you say, because I trusted her completely. Um, and she said, right, you've got to do what I say then, none of this sort of hanging on. And it was during lockdown, which made it even worse, because we had to sort of be in the car park of the vet, and all this sort of stuff, couldn't go inside and things. And eventually she just said, that's it, he's reached the end, we can't do anything else to make him comfortable apart from put him on morphine, and that will make his quality of life non-existent. So it's the worst thing I've ever had to do in my life, and I think other people with animals would know that, just because you don't have to do it for people, do you?
No, you don't. No,
But yeah,
don't. Yeah, no, it's soul destroying. And I think I can see when I was reading this book, because I've had one dog growing up, and he died when he was 9. He died, he had a heart attack. So you can see the love in this book. You really, really can. And that's why it was a great choice for a debut collection for you straight away with it.
well,
What made you? Sorry, pardon me, go on.
a friend of mine, when she read it,
Hmm.
another friend said to her, "Oh, well, I'm not really interested in dogs." And she said, "It's not about dogs, it's about love."
Yeah, definitely a love book.
So that's why I called it Rex My Love.
Yeah, no, it's a love book between the pair of you straight away. I can see that coming excellently. So, what made you want to bring out your second collection, Mermaids in My Basement, so quickly afterwards? Because only a couple months later.
Um, right. So it's a one of these weird things. I joined this online writers group, which is sadly not existing anymore, run by Kate Roberts, called What Love Told Us. And it's just wonderful. So we used to sort of dial up every morning, and we do a little bit of meditation, and then we'd write, and then we'd say and it was a closed group, so it was totally, you could say whatever you liked, you could write whatever you liked, you didn't have to share it if you didn't want. And people gone through all kinds of really, really difficult times in their lives and have put it all out in poetry. So I was writing every day, and basically, when Rex was right at the end, what I decided to do was gather together all the poems that I'd written about him and publish them separately. And this book actually came out, Rex, My Love, it actually came out the day after he died. So it was like a celebration of him and us, really, our relationship. And then I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with all these other things that I've been writing for the last year or so. And as you know, once you get into a habit of writing every day, you can't do anything else. You've got to get up and have a cup of tea and write. That's it.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely.
It's really great. And
Now, I think we should cover, obviously, the title of the book. So I didn't know this before, but this is an Emily Dickinson link, isn't it?
Right. So I probably should have credited her with that. But basically, in this it's out of copyright, so I'm not worried. But she wrote, I love Emily Dickinson. I think she's my favourite poet. And she just wrote every day as well. She wrote, one year I think she wrote 400 poems. So one of her great poems, I love it. It's kind of about the sea. Well, it is about the sea. But it starts out, the first line is, I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. The mermaids in the basement came out to look at me. So it's a sort of link between, there's quite a lot of things in the second book about swimming, because I used to go swimming every day, and the sea, and obviously the link into the dog. So it was really it sort of linked everything together. And, it's tribute to Emily Dickinson, who is just an amazing poet, just a wonderful poet. And, the idea that you're just kind of minding your own business, taking the dog for a walk, and out come the mermaids to see what you're up to. And that is Emily Dickinson all over. It's kind of the totally miraculous in the everyday.
Oh, yeah. No, I've got a friend that's a massive, massive fan of Emily Dickinson. He's got this absolutely gigantic book of hers he pulls out every now and then. Yeah. Yeah, I know it completely. Yeah. Yay. Good choice. Good choice. I've got a PDF on that one on Mob, actually, on the Kindle. So
you never run out with Emily Dickinson. She's written, let me just see how many, 1,775 poems in this book.
Yeah, it might take you a while to get through that,
yeah. I think she published about 3 in her lifetime.
It wasn't many, was it? Yeah, it wasn't many. I heard that one, so yeah.
She sort of put them up for publication, and then she realised very, very early on nobody was going to publish this stuff because it was wildly before its time. And so she never bothered after that. And then I think she wanted her poetry destroyed, but her sister didn't do that, which I'm eternally grateful to her sister for not doing that.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's where the title came from. I didn't make it up. But it's
tell us about the significance of the title then for the book then. What made you want to tell us about why you wanted to call the book Mermaids in My Basement?
Well, there is a poem in there called Mermaids in My Basement. And basically, when I moved I live in a little terraced house, 2 up, 2 down house in Stretford, on a row with lots of other people who are really great neighbours. And I thought, I just love this little house. It's perfect. It's like right across the road from the library, and it's near Aldi, and it's near the tram station and the bus station, very close to the park. Perfect. The only thing that's wrong with it is there's no swimming pool.
Yeah, there won't be wood there on there,
yeah. I was reading this stuff about a load of people in London, because it's impossible to build higher now in London because of the building regulations. They've started building in their basement, so they're creating these amazing spaces in the basements of their houses. And I thought I could have if I dug up my backyard, I could have a swimming pool underneath the house. So I spoke to a couple of the neighbours and said, what would you think if we all knocked our basements together and made it into a swimming pool? And they all said yes. So we've never actually gone anywhere with it, but that's what we wanted to do. We thought we'd have a swimming pool in our basement. And I thought, well, if you did have a swimming pool in your basement, who knows what might fetch up there,
Yeah, you never know.
Why not?
Who knows indeed?
Why not?
So, yeah. Who knows?
So this poem is about what a lovely little house it is, but I still long for this sort of fantasy world underneath my house. So that's really what
Brilliant.
that poem's about.
Brilliant.
And
Now,
we all do. We all buy our houses or rent our houses or whatever. We move in and we think, oh, this is a nice, cozy little house. But there's always something a bit missing, isn't there? And that when I say I long to find a secret underground world of caves and caverns and swimming holes and mermaids singing.
brilliant. No, you can see it in that book, really can, that piece, definitely. The couple of others I really, really enjoyed. It's a great book, this one, again. And the voice is very different in this book. So there's a bit more, I think there's a mischievousness in this book that comes to the forefront, I think, a fair bit more. And obviously, Rex book, which is a harder book to do it that same way. Who was Minnie the Minx?
Oh, it's just me.
That was you. I wasn't sure about you or some of your friends. That one there.
Well, I was a big Beano fan in my youth. I loved the Beano. I loved it, and I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, page 17. Here we go. And the thing is, when we used to do this sort of little medication, we used to do this little meditation first thing in the morning, think about love and what love was showing us at the moment, at the time. And I always coming up with these pictures from the Beano. And I was Minnie the Minx. I was always Minnie the Minx. I was always the naughty girl, and in a good sense. And
Brilliant.
Basically, what I love about Minnie is she stands up for herself. She's a little feminist hero, really.
Yeah, if you people agree to read the Beatles, I grew up reading that myself. I'm of that generation, and you look back at it like you think she was really a pioneer. Really, you're right with it because a lot of because the comic you'd argue was a cockfest in some ways, wasn't it? With Dennis the Menace and I can't remember.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and there was more, and the Bash Street kids were mostly boys, weren't they? Or were they all boys even?
They were all boys apart from Minnie. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think Minnie was in the Bash Street Boys. I don't think she was.
No, she wasn't. She was a sort of character. Yeah. So yeah.
She had her own cartoon, but she was always, she was always standing up for herself. And I think I kind of saw myself a lot like that when I was a kid. I was brought up with all brothers the first few years of my life, and then we had my cousins came to live with us, and two of those were girls. But apart from that, it was all boys. So, and they were very like the Bash Street kids in lots of ways, my brothers and their mates. And I was always trying to I want to be part of their gang and I want to join in with them. And that was Minnie. So Minnie would just be like being naughtier and braver and tougher than they were to show who they were. So I think my inner child is Minnie the Minx, definitely.
Oh, like definitely. I know my brother said I was Dennis the Menace, but I'm not. I was fairly good. He was the naughty one, right? So.
And Nasha, of course. Rex would always have been Nasha.
Oh, completely.
Rex would have made a great Nasha.
The other one I want to ask you about was on the piece, the book was foxes, and this one there's a lot of great again like before. Like I want to learn about the foxes poem. Where did you actually have foxes as pets growing up? Did you at one point, or were they just nuisances, shall we say?
I wrote this sort of little mini collections within this Mermaids book. So one of them is there's a whole series on swimming. There's a few on cartoon characters, and the one that you're talking about is, well, hang on a minute, what was it again? Which one were we talking about?
Foxes.
Foxes, right? A little collection of stuff. Hard to love. It was. So who are the people that are hard? It started off with the slugs, and there's a book about slugs, and it's just various creatures that are really quite hard to love, and foxes are one of them. And a friend of mine during lockdown, she lives in London, and we were in touch. She lives on her own, and we were in touch just about every day. And the sort of highlight of her lockdown was this family of foxes. This fox came to live in her back garden, and had babies there. And she was like, every day she would tell me, oh, look at them. She'd go and video them and all this sort of stuff. The foxes. And then after a while, they started getting quite menacing, these foxes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So she'd be like out, urban foxes. Everybody in London has got urban foxes. They're always around people's backyards, but they do things like steal babies and stuff. They do have fights with cats and eat your pets and things like that. So they are always wild animals, and you've got to be aware of that. But she was out there feeding them tons and tons of cat food, and they were getting closer and closer into the house. And I said to her, Kath, have you thought that maybe you're kind of encouraging them to come and live in your house?
Yeah, I was wondering that. Yeah, myself. It does sound a bit like that, doesn't it? Oh, God.
Because you're thinking, aren't they beautiful, absolutely beautiful creatures, but they are actually quite menacing creatures as well. And to me, it sort of represented, I mean, it was a true story, but it also represented, you see something that's really attractive and very beautiful and mysterious and interesting, and you feed it, and then it gets big and it starts to take over your life.
Oh, no, completely. No, I agree with Cabass. I'm thinking like, yeah, so you're getting a straight away with that. Oh, wow, yeah.
I think I said something like, you did invite them in. It is down to you. It was your fault that they've turned up. But I mean, nothing happened, thank God. But she was saying, I'm getting a bit nervous about these foxes. And I did say, and I said, you did encourage them, Kath. That's the thing. And maybe it's, it's part of yourself. You're part of, or dangerous people that you attract, and then they get a bit out of hand,
Oh, yeah, no, of course, completely. Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, now, you were telling me before, obviously, start looking at winding down this part in the podcast, about what you've got coming up next. You've already told us you're into a novel at the moment, aren't you, as well? But you've also got another poetry collection on the way as well, haven't you? So, The Kitchen Years. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's so basically, as I said, I've been writing like a lot over the years, but I had this massive outburst of poetry writing, like a pandemic, when my first marriage split up, and I wrote a load of stuff, and they do kind of stick together, those poems, and a lot of them are about kind of coping with, because my first husband left the household that we were living in, and it's sort of coping with the household when that person's gone, and everything reminds you of the life you had together, and it's about that. So for a long time I didn't have any title, and then a friend of mine said, well, they're mostly about the kitchen, really, Anne, so why don't you call them the kitchen poems? So that's what I called them.
I like it. At least you're not called it the kitchen sink years, anyway.
So that's what they are. So this lot that should be coming out this year, they're about 30 years old, these poems, and they've never seen the light of day. 6 people have read these poems before they come out. That's it. So, and they're not particularly, they're not pornographic. They're not anything like that. But it's just they're so intensely personal that it's very, very difficult to share this stuff that's so inside you. But now that I've got 2 other books behind me, I thought, I'll have to go. And I'm getting on a bit now. So I'm thinking, if I don't get them out now, when am I ever going to get them out, really?
Yeah, no, I can't blame you on that, because it's a lovely opinion, definitely. If you want to get them out while you're still here, basically. So you want people to, you want to hear reaction of people on it straight away. No, definitely on that. So, and hopefully in the next year or two, you get one of your novels out as well, then, won't you? Fingers crossed. So.
I'm hoping I'm going to finish this. It's a memoir about Rex, as I said, but it's kind of about, obviously it's about my life as well. It's got quite a lot of stuff in about kind of the relationship between people and pets, which is great in lots of ways, but not so great in other ways. So, and just our relationship with dogs, which is totally fascinating. The whole human relationship with dogs, which is just amazing. Thousands and thousands of years we've been together. It's something that I'm really interested in. So I'm hoping, touch everything, that I'll get that finished by the end of this year and hopefully publish that next year.
Great. Well, fingers crossed that definitely with that one. I wish you all the best of both of them. And obviously, Anne, to wrap up part one, if people do get hold of your books, where do you recommend they go?
It's all on Amazon.
That's fair enough. It is indeed. I've been looking at that before, so that's why. So I think one of your books you can pick up the Waterstones as well. Actually, I'm sure I've read that somewhere as well.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely can definitely get them on Amazon. I've seen them before. That now, if people want to get a hold of you, speak to you further about your books, where do you recommend they go?
I haven't really thought about it, Andy. To be honest, I haven't.
People you can find you on Facebook anyway, can't they? So if people want to speak to you further, so
I am Anne Delargy on Facebook, so I'm pretty obvious. The other thing I'm hoping I'm going to get, certainly the next book is going to. Somebody told me that Cholton Bookshop might take it because they like local poets, so I'm going to have a go at that. So that might be a place to get hold of it. But it's all on Amazon. I can send you the link for Amazon.
Please do. And I'll put it in the write-up for this part for you as well. That's great.
I don't really have much to do with it. I just send it off to the publisher and they do everything else.
Fair play. Well, good luck, the man, definitely. So, right, everybody, we're going to wrap up part one.
Yeah.
We'll pause the recording for a couple of moments, let Anne get composed, and we will right back, and you're going to get entertained, definitely. So,
Spoken Label.
Hi, guys. Andy Ed, Spoken Label, the amazing Anne Delargy. Straight over to Anne. She's going to start off with a couple of pieces from Rex My Love, and then, by coincidence, we're going to go into Mermaids in My Basement and a couple of exclusive poems from our upcoming collection. Over to you, Anne.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. It's been really, really great doing this broadcast. I've never done a broadcast before, so it's been really, really great doing that, and I've really enjoyed it and talking to you. And we're talking about the first book that I put out, which came out the day after my little dog Rex died, and it's a tribute to him basically, and I've credited him as one of the authors, so it's Rex and Anne Delargy. And the first one I'm going to read is called Silverdale. I don't know if anybody knows that area. It's up in the northwest of England on the coast, and it's a very beautiful place, but it does have the northwest weather. So this one. Silverdale, oh my God, Silverdale, our first and last camping trip. It was a long, long journey, buses, trains, and walking like snails with our houses on our backs. When we got there, it was almost dark. I pitched the tent in a soggy field, trekked off to buy breakfast at the camp shop, only to find when I returned, the stove wasn't working. High winds, driving rain, sea a long way out. Typical northern English summer. When the rain eased up, we walked on the huge beach in the dark. You loved it. So many, many smells, little rock pools of delight. Returning deliriously happy, you rolled on your back in the sodden grass. Oh, the stench. Fox shit, the worst smell in the world. Impossible to sleep or even breathe beside you. I dragged you to the showers, where you were barred from entry. The most hangdog of all dogs, you cowered under the cold shower outside, and I carried you back inside my coach, shivering and shaking. Zipped into my sleeping bag with me. I thought you'd die of cold. I thought I'd choke to death, crushed together with Pepe Le Pew. When the light finally came up on another cold and rainy day, I saw your flailing paws had ripped a rent in the tent. I love you, Rex, I really do. But I'll never, ever again go camping in Silverdale with you.
Oh, that brings memories back for me. That does the dog I had, Muppet. Oh, he was just as daft. That's the best way to put it, that one there, straight away. But is that, you can see the love in that piece, but it's like a love-hate almost. I can imagine you wanted to wring his neck after that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's, it's something that sort of runs through the book, which is, it's a big responsibility having a dog. And if you have to sleep with a stinky dog zipped into your sleeping bag, then that's what you have to do.
Oh, yeah, I think it's part of the love, basically, as I would say, definitely. So,
Absolutely.
anyway, on to your
Absolutely.
next piece then, with Rex.
I'm going to do another one. I think you mentioned it in the earlier bit about called Before We Met. And this is
Yes, I remember this one. Yeah, brilliant.
Rex was a rescue dog, so I didn't really know anything about him before I had him. So I never knew what happened to you before you came to live with me. I know you were determined to make our house your home, find a place deep in our hearts that you could burrow into. So wherever you came from, you weren't going back. I never met your mother, your sisters or brothers, don't even know if you were from the mountains or the shore. All I know is the look of terror on your face when I brought out the shopping trolley and the plastic bags, and the wild barking and the growls when you saw drunken men staggering in the streets. That said it all, told me everything I needed to know about your past. And I swore to you right then, my love, you're never going back.
I'm really glad you read that piece of yours in there, because I think it shows to people basically what Rex went through before you got to, and it's like I didn't mention before, but I spent a couple of weeks in Cyprus some years ago. I did visit my friend over there, and it was I've not been creeped, I believe it's very similar. And I always remember that, going to a market with Evie, and we basically went past these little litter of kittens that were born about 3 days before, curled up with fleas running all around them, and it's quite a distressing sight, really. So yeah, and that's what I imagine Rex probably went through. He probably went through probably all kinds of horribleness. So
yeah. I mean, as I say, I don't know what he went through, but I know he was terrified of plastic bags, and he was terrified of anything on wheels like shopping trolleys, and he was terrified of drunk men. So put it all together, you've got a pretty good idea of what he went through.
Yeah. The word is begins with H and ends in L. There's 4 letters.
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
Hell.
And that's what a lot of dogs go through, a lot of animals go through. But the great thing about them is they just put it all behind them and get on with their life.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay. Did we agree another one on Rex Model, or we're going to move on to your next book? I forgot what we said.
No, let's go on to Mermaids.
Brilliant. Okay.
So this, as I said, this book is about this book is called Mermaids in My Basement, and it is a quote from Emily Dickinson and a poem by Emily Dickinson about taking her dog out for a walk by the sea. It's an incredibly powerful poem that she wrote, and it's always stayed in my heart. And when I was writing this, I was doing a lot of swimming. So quite a lot of books in this, poems in this book are about swimming, and this is kind of when I wanted to open up my basement to make it into a swimming pool. So it's called Mermaids in My Basement. Don't get me wrong, I love this little house. It's cozy and convenient, nestled between nice neighbours and handy for the shops. But underneath it, I long to find a secret underground world of caves and caverns and swimming holes, with seaweed dripping from the roofs, full of cavorting dolphins and bellowing monsters and mermaids singing.
Oh, it's great. It really is there's just a cheekiness about that poem, and quite a few in the second book. It's brilliant stuff, and I really I like the brevity of it. That's my posh word for the night. Excellent stuff.
It's the one. The one that we were talking about before, and we talked about, is Minnie the Minx, and I can read that one now. So I was in this wonderful online poetry group run by Kate Roberts in Chorlton, and every morning we used to have a little meditation, and then we'd write about what love was telling us this morning. And a lot of the time when I was doing my little meditations, I would think about the Bass Street Kids and the bingo. Sorry, not the bingo, the Beano. And Minnie. My big hero in that comic was Minnie the Minx. Today, when love stepped forward finally, after many calls summoned to the front of the class, she was tattered and torn like a character from the Bash Street Kids. catapult hanging out of her pocket and her hair all over. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looked so comical, such a roughy tufty, yet hurt and alone, brave and vulnerable, standing her ground against all those bully boys. So I think she's a little bit of a feminist icon to be Minnie. And it's just about how love is sometimes very hard and, you know, and it gets a bit roughed up and, you know, it's brave and vulnerable. It's both of those things. And that's what Minnie was, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. So she definitely was before her time in some ways, the Beano, definitely.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Excellent stuff.
Well, the next one I wanted to read was it's called Lockdown Ghosts, and it's something that I think is coming out now, recorded as a phenomenon that a lot of people, when we were going through lockdown in COVID, sort of the deepest time of it when we weren't allowed out at all, some people started experiencing almost like ghostly visitations from dead friends and relatives, and that's certainly what happened to me. And it's quite a comical one. But all the people in this that I'm writing about are dead, so they can't complain. So the lockdown ghosts were here again. They got stranded here last year. Gary plumping up the cushions, putting the toilet roll in the right way around, tutting and telling me off. Angela singing tunelessly in the shower. I think it's The End by Tuneless Nico. Then shuffling to the kitchen in her slippers to make our porridge and golden syrup. My mother, of course, cleaning the kitchen floor with mournful hymns or Doris Day's Que Sera, Sera, wishing me sweet dreams on her hands and knees. Say one for me while you're down there, my dad chortles, but never stoops to help. My brothers never did much in the house, but all the rest are helpful with the chores. Oh, how I wish they were back in this house, where they have never been. It would be so very tidy and clean, but really crowded and loud. So the ghosts that I had were people who were pretty good at doing housework and looking after things like that and making breakfast and stuff. And I was really hoping that somebody would come and do that.
Yeah, I think you wish sometimes ghosts could actually do that. They come back to haunt you, make yourself useful, as I would say. I don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make yourself useful while you're there. The last one I want to do is called My Own Lane. And as I said, there's a lot of when we were finally out of lockdown, I used to go swimming every day in Withington Baths, which is one of my favourite places in the world. It's an old Edwardian bath and very, very beautiful, but pretty run down, and it's just a great place, and it's run by the community. So this one was when I was swimming every day, and it's called My Own Lane. And you know, most people who know swimming know that you're supposed to swim in lanes. When you're doing swimming up and down, you're supposed to swim up in lanes, but very few people stick to that. So I longed to swim in my own lane in blessed solitude and peace. But here they all are, ploughing up and down, splashing far too much, going the wrong way. The old boys with their bald pates bobbing in and out of the water like happy close-shaved cocks, as their voluminous drawers billow out behind. The chatty ladies with their wonky arms and maggoty legs like blue cheese, berating their selfish grandchildren. Somehow, through that blinding shaft of sunlight, they'd become a host of shimmering angels swimming in paradise. There's some amazing stained glass windows in Withington Baths, and when the sunlight comes through, it's just like everything's transformed into paradise, basically.
I think sunlight does that, doesn't it? It always brightens up the most mundane places sometimes, and then I know I've been to Withington swim baths before now. You're right with it completely. It does. It's that sort of place. In summertime, it's brilliant here and there. In wintertime, it's pretty grim in some ways.
Well, yeah. I love it because it's very, I mean, it's a real community baths and everybody goes in, and people who can't swim and people who just want to have a little chat with their mates and stuff like that. And there am I thinking, I want to swim. But they get in the way. Human beings get in the way all the time of your great ideas of what you want to do.
Oh, yeah, Story of My Life, that one. Definitely, I agree with you there. So, right, okay, I think we're on to new poems. A couple of new ones now to wrap up with, aren't we, so?
Okay, so they're not new. These are the oldest of the
Okay,
poems.
well, should we say new old? Okay, is that a better way to put it, right?
They're the newest to come out, so hopefully we'll get these out this year if we can get myself together and stop keep losing them. I've got drawers and drawers of them. As I said, they were written about the time when my marriage split up, and we'd been together for 20 years, and it was very, very traumatic. And I was still in the house that we'd lived in, and it was, you know, quite difficult to see how I could make a new life in the same place. And I wrote quite a lot of things that were about the house, really. So the first one's called The Knife Drawer. When I was small, my mother used to say, "You're sharp today, miss. Been sleeping in the knife drawer?" I dreamed about it sometimes, lying among the thin-bladed mean knives with sharp cheekbones and dueling scars, or the little fat butter knives all tucked up for the night. I tried to stab you once with a little kitchen devil. When you pulled it from me, it opened up my finger and left a curved, elegant scar like jewellery. Ever after, when I got drunk and bad-mouthed, you'd laugh and say, "Quick, hide the knives."
Really?
The other thing my mother said was, "Don't get too sharp, lady, or you'll cut yourself." She was right there.
Oh, the last line. I wouldn't say I hate to use the word last line cuts, but it definitely stings. Definitely the word, that one there. Brilliant.
I do like colour, sort of killer last lines. That's one of my favourite things in poems.
Yeah, you can tell. Definitely that one. So
you can stop your poem whenever you like, but it's really good if you have a really good ending to it.
Oh yeah, completely. Right, I think we're on to the big finale now, aren't we? So
not really, but it's it's another one from the sort of kitchen ones, and it's called Handyman. Those bathroom tiles fell off again today. I sat and cried. I know I'm no dab hand at DIY, but you were no great handyman. All right, I know you tried your best. You wore your dad's old dungarees, a pencil stuck behind your ear. You hummed a lot and measured things. You played at it all day, but nothing ever came of it. I'd say, "I'll get a man in then," and you'd fly off in a rage. In crabby middle age, I sometimes think, instead of those great fiery debates on life, those great Dionysiac transports, we would have been better employed learning about grouting. We could have built a longer lasting monument to our love, and at least the tiles would have stayed put.
oh, I love that ending. Oh, what a good ending. Good ending, that.
Thank you.
I know a few handymen like that. And I think I'm of the school where it's not do it yourself. Mine is destroy it yourself. And some of these handymen I know are definitely on that line.
It was one of the, I think it's in a lot of marriages where, you know, you like, for some reason, men feel that they have to be the ones that do the handyman stuff.
Anyway, I'm going to keep off that. That's all I can say there. There's plenty I can say, but I'm not going to go on record and say what I'm thinking there.
But it's like, what is the point? You're good at some things. You're not good at sticking tiles on bathroom walls. That's all, you know.
Yeah, I definitely want them not a no with that.
It's kind of insult to their manliness if you get somebody in to do it, and that's really what it was about. But also about, you know, we spent so much time drinking and sort of arguing about politics and poetry and stuff like that. Instead of doing that, we should have just learned about how to stick tiles on walls.
No, stick to poetry. It's my philosophy. Anyway, Anne, we'll wrap up this part. We're going to talk a bit further anyway, off mic anyway. But I want to thank you for today. It's been a vastly entertaining last hour or so. So I really, really enjoyed this.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks ever so much, Andy. And thanks for doing all these podcasts. They're brilliant. Really great.
It means a lot to me, Anne, you saying that, definitely. So anyway, guys and girls, on to my favourite saying from Don Callis over at AEW Wrestling. Stay safe and most importantly, stay over. And we will see you all next time.
Spoken, mate.